Hey guys, today I'm going to be showing you how to fix an Atari 5200 console. Keep in mind this works on both 2-port and 4-port systems. I'm going to be showing you how to fix the power issues that can occur when the CD4013 flip-flopper fails. You'll get problems like the console randomly turning on, as well as the console randomly turning off, or the console not turning on at all, or staying on, or staying off. Yeah, you get the point. The problem all comes down to one thing, and that is this chip. The CD413 is responsible for sending power to the video and logic portion of the system. If this fails, and one of those does not turn on, the system will not properly work, stuff like that. Won't be able to play games. Things will not be nice. So yeah, basically how to fix it is we're gonna remove the board from the shell of the system, and we're gonna flip this upside down. Right where that chip is, right here. I'll actually zoom in on that for you. Right there. I'm going to go ahead and add some flux and some solder. And we'll go about removing the chip. So I'm going to take my flux pen and just... Okay, that was the cap that fell off. I'm going to take my flux pen and just apply flux to these pins. You don't necessarily have to do this, but I'm going to, because I always have better luck removing things if I add some fresh solder. So there we go. Now we can take a bit of solder. There we go. Alright, now what I'm going to do, you can probably do this with a solder sucker. I did it on my own personal system a long time ago now with a solder sucker. Although the work was not quite as clean as I would liked it to have been, or at least the standard I hold myself to now, which is why I use a bulb desoldering iron. Love to get a Heiko 808 or FR300, but I mean, I'm not made of money. Anyways, all we're going to do is just heat up each pin until we can remove the chip from the board. There we go. That is desoldered enough to my satisfaction. I might pull up a pad removing this chip, but that's not the end of the world, since pads are replaceable and so are traces for the most part. And no wonder I can't see, my camera is zoomed all the way in. Anyways, with the solder removed on this chip, and now that I can see it, I will actually zoom back in. With the solder removed on the CD 4013, excuse me, I'm going to take... I'm going to actually take a chip puller and try to get the chip out that way. If this doesn't work, I'll use a screwdriver and pry up. Although that's really not recommended, but it does have to be done sometimes. So, always like to try the IC puller first, though. It occurred to me that I'm going to have to actually remove clip two components in order to get this out correctly. I'm going to snip this diode on the very end of its leg and lift up, and I'm going to snip this capacitor on the very end of its leg and lift up. That will give me clearance to access the sides of the chip. Yeah, I really didn't expect this to work, but it's always good to try it first, because sometimes it does. Alright, let's break out the screwdriver. Alright, I'm using a pretty small flathead screwdriver, and all I'm going to do, just stick it under the pin, or excuse me, under the chip, and carefully, you know what, I'm going to break that resistor if I don't get that out of the way. I'm going to snip that one as well. Alright, let's go ahead and lift up. There we go. And the chip is free of the board. Now, what I'm going to do instead of soldering a replacement chip right in there is I'm going to replace this chip, this CD4013, with a 16-pin socket. And the reason for this is because the CD4013 is well known for being quite flaky, and they fail pretty often. If someone besides me has to replace this in the future, having the chip socketed will just make their life 20 times easier, because then they won't have to know how to solder. So that's a pretty good reason to socket the chip. Also, what I will also mention is the CD4013 is a pretty old chip. It contains a lot of old technology. Stuff that is now very outdated, and better flip-floppers exist. And really, is that a 14-pin chip? 2, 4, 6, 7. It is. So, excuse me. You need a 14-pin socket, not a 16-pin socket. Anyways, to continue with what I was saying, the CD4013 is a pretty old flip-flopper. The technology used in the CD4013 is now very dated, and much better flip-floppers exist. With that being said, you can find replacement CD4013s online for incredibly cheap. So I am going to be replacing this with a straight up CD4013 replacement. But if you have a pin compatible flip-flopper that can handle up to 12 volts, it should do just fine in the system. Anyways, with the socket in place, and with me holding up the socket with my finger, Alright, with the soldering done, we can go ahead and I'm going to actually solder these passive components back in place. I'm going to bend them down pretty carefully, and I'm There we go. Alright, there we go. Those components are soldered back on the board. Now, we can take our replacement CD4013 and we can simply stick it in the socket. This is actually not a replacement CD4013. I actually bought a whole bunch of them on eBay for just a couple dollars, but for demonstration purposes in the video, I just want to show you what the finished product will look like, and that's what it'll look like. Now, if this chip were working, I would take the working, I would now plug the system back in and it would work. And that's all you got to do to fix the power issues, usually on an Atari 5200 system. Sometimes it could be a problem with the 7805, or maybe one of the diodes is burned out, or a resistor's gone bad, or a capacitor's gone bad. A lot of things could vary, but usually when an Atari 5200 is having power issues, it's usually because of this guy right here. So I would always check this first, check for shorts to ground and stuff like that. You can always check the 7805 later. That's pretty easy to check and whatnot. So that's a pretty simple thing to replace. It'll make your system work, and thanks for watching, guys. Subscribe and like the video if it helped, and thanks for watching.